Just Stop Oil have had a lot of media exposure.
Just stop oil. Just stop oil.
Just stop oil.
Just stop peeing everyone off. This Just Stop Oil slogan is very playgroundish, isn't it? It's very Vicky Pollard.
Although the coverage generally focuses on their style of protest and not on their goals.
The point isn't about saying the facts over and over again. It's about the actual protest and about...
Exactly.
So we spoke with Just Stop Oil member Harley to get more context on their tactics, demands and to better understand the climate crisis.
I've heard everything. I mean, you must have seen them in the papers. Eco Nut, Eco Loon, Eco Zealot, Loony Lefty. There was a video of me being arrested for doing a march, and the top comment was by Andrew Tate's brother saying, you know, I've just bought another Lamborghini because of this. I think Boris Johnson said, weed-smelling crusties.
Heaving, hemp-smelling bivouacs.
Which obviously is really funny. But yeah, again, it's just to avoid talking about the topic. But I do respect the humour with it. So, hi, my name's Harley. I'm a supporter of Just Stop Oil. And this is more context.
Just Stop Oil are a UK-based environmental group that emerged in early 2022, initially demanding an end to new fossil fuel projects. They're known for headline-grabbing protests like gluing themselves to walls or blocking roads, actions that spark both outrage and support. While some see them as brave activists echoing past social movements, many dismiss them as disruptive troublemakers.
So, disruptive protests which have had an impact on policy or changed governments. I mean, the first example I would give is Just Stop Oil. So Just Stop Oil started with the aim of no new oil and gas licences, and then that's now been taken on by the Labour government. The Labour Party agreed to it during a phone-in on LBC. I can't find any reference to that before. That phone-in was actually talking about Just Stop Oil protests.
I'm a big supporter of Just Stop Oil because they're saying no new oil and gas.
Well, Fiona, let me just deal with Just Stop Oil because I think they're wrong. I think their action is wrong.
To Fiona's point, Sakir, no new oil or gas licences. Can you give that pledge now?
Yes, I can.
So that's the first instance. So I think there's a clear through line here that Just Stop Oil had some impact. And I think this is something that's often forgotten, is that most movements, their tactics are hated. People believe that Martin Luther King's tactics were regressive, we're going to set the movement back. That was a common thing. But that didn't stop him winning, right? Because I think that the image that people get of protests is that the way that things change is you go on a march, no one gets upset, and somehow through the force of your moral argument, everyone comes on side and it wins, right? But the reality is it's much more messy than that. And while it's going on, there's a lot of upset, there's a lot of tension, because it's challenging the way people are living, it's challenging the way people think about themselves. And I think especially with something like climate, it challenges the things that people care about. It means that we need to move away from animal products. It means that we need to move away from private cars and transportation like this. It means that we need to move away from flying abroad to go on holiday. These are things that are part of people's identity. It's part of people's lives. Any tactic that gets attention is disliked because of this, because it has this thing of this is going to be a huge shift. So I don't think that media outlets would talk about it if the tactics weren't disruptive. And there's good reasons for believing that. Extinction Rebellion, there was between 60 and 80,000 people did a peaceful demonstration in Parliament Square over 4 days. It received almost no media coverage. And I think this is true for every movement, is that the press don't really want to cover it. And almost you have to play this game with the press where to get the message out to the broader public, you have to do something which is seen as outrageous, you have to do something which is seen as shocking. And especially on social media, it has to be visually impressive.
Another disruption.
The soup on a Van Gogh, it sparked outrage and the press played on it, and it's because the press published it as if the painting was damaged, right? The press knew there was protective glass on the painting. They knew it wasn't damaged, but for the first day it was published as if it was damaged, right? And so the debate is, should we be destroying art to raise awareness about a cause, rather than should we use art as a way of bringing attention to a cause without damaging the art itself? Which is obviously not controversial. It's not as important. People don't see that as being as dangerous. If you have people doing a peaceful, friendly, cooperative march, then when the press covers it, you can't demonize 60,000 people having a picnic and saying, hey, we need to make change. So they just don't cover it.
Everything we're asking for is to make people feel safer, healthier and happier.
And if you want to see something, is look at some of the caricatures that were done of Martin Luther King, who now is obviously seen as one of the greatest people that ever lived. Is look at the caricatures in the American newspapers at the time. They make him look comical, they make him look stupid, they make him look ugly, they do racist caricatures of him. And it's because, again, they couldn't argue with the message, which is that people should be treated with equal rights in a country which says they're the land of the free. And also, another thing I believe is that many of the people will change their mind as time goes on. I think that there's this curve almost, and it's a Schopenhauer quote, which is that every idea goes through the same few stages. The first is that it's ridiculed. The second is that the idea is fought very hard. And then the third stage is that it's accepted as if everyone always believed it was true. We're definitely at the fight stage now. It was laughed at when I first started doing activism. People thought you were just crazy and weird. And now we're in the fight stage. And I'm hoping that in the near future we'll get to the stage where, we accept now what Just What We're doing was right, and Just What We're pushing for something positive by doing this.
Climate change has already displaced tens of millions of people globally, and scientists from various institutions predict large parts of Africa and the Middle East will become inhabitable, resulting between 200 million and 2 billion climate refugees by 2050, which, if accurate, would lead to mass migration into Europe on a scale like never before. Keir Starmer has committed to achieving clean power by 2030, which means a zero-carbon electricity system. However, Just Stop Oil claim this doesn't go far enough and want the government to commit to the ending of extracting and burning of fossil fuels by 2030. We asked how achievable that goal is.
So now there are going to be no new oil and gas licences in the UK, which is fantastic news. And the new goal is no extraction or burning of fossil fuels in the UK by 2030, which is a huge one. It's on a far different scale from the previous one. But again, we need this level of change. And so what that means is they're still using plastic products, things like this, but no burning and extraction. So no drawing any more oil out of the ground, no more extracting coal, no more extracting gas, all of those things. And then getting rid of all forms of burning of that. So that would be, changing our boilers to more efficient green boilers, like heat pumps, this kind of thing. And also moving away from internal combustion engines and diesel trains. It's a mistake to say, what can we achieve? Right? That's the real thing is, what do we need to achieve in the time we have? So, if the science is saying, or if the scientists are telling us that we've only got 5 years to make a shift completely to this, it's up to us to try and figure out a way to make that possible. Because the opposite is the collapse of our society. And I think we need to move away from that framing and towards a war framing, which is, no, this is the aim. We have to get there as fast as possible. We're just going to use whatever we can.
Human-caused climate change will make extreme flooding more likely.
The first group of climate refugees in the Arctic Circle.
New research from the British Standards Institution, or BSI, warns that without action, 75% of the world's population could be facing drought by 2050.
Okay, so we're facing 1 billion climate refugees by 2050. That means the collapse of our society, essentially. 1 billion climate refugees is like human suffering on a scale that we've never ever experienced. It's just unfathomable how large that is. And the kicker is that we've got fuck all time to do anything about it. We've got almost no time left. It's physics, it's not politics. I don't understand human beings or human psychology well enough to know why this has happened, but it's bizarre that it follows some political line, whether someone believes something that's happening in the air, someone that believes about whether scientists are telling the truth or not. But I suppose that's probably it, is that certain people have more trust in scientists and other people don't, believe that they've got some ulterior motives. I hesitate to use a Churchill quote, but it's the best quote I've ever heard on this. Let's think about Second World War Churchill, a great hero in the Second World War, helped to defeat fascism. It's not enough to do our best. We have to do what's enough. Whenever anyone says to me, what's actually achievable, what can we actually do realistically with this? It's like, I don't care. It's not enough to do our best. We have to do what's enough. And I think that's the mentality that we need with this.
Statistically, most people feel the government aren't doing enough to tackle climate change. However, most people are also against Just Stop Oil's tactics. History shows us that contentious movements, from the suffragettes to civil rights activists, often face backlash before winning public support. But can Just Stop Oil follow suit?
People are often searching and using it as an excuse for not taking action of what's the perfect thing to do, and then poking holes in the groups that exist. Greenpeace, you don't do this right, and Just Stop Oil, you don't do this right. So my answer is, I'm not going to do anything. And so the first thing I say is, well, go to the one you like. Go to the one that you think is the most important, or that works, has the best output. Because it's better to do something than nothing. Just Stop Oil has been doing this 2 years, we've won the demand. Extinction Rebellion, using very similar tactics, got the government to declare a climate emergency, to set a net zero by 2050 target.
The government has known for 30 years it needs to act. It's failed to do so. So now we're declaring a rebellion.
And we've seen it all over the world, this happening. No one's really motivated, or very few people are motivated by the intellect or by things like that. People are spurred on by emotion. And when people are ready to do this, when people are sort of emotionally called to do something like this, they will do it from that. And it's almost a mistake to think that we can convince people that it will happen. And the final point I would say is, even in these big historical moments where there's, you know, the Russian Revolution, or there's the Serbian Revolution, or the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, all these things, people imagine half the population are out, 90% of the population are out. It's bullshit. In reality, 1% of the population are out on the streets, 2% of the population are out on the streets. If you're very lucky, 3%, but it's never really more than that. It's very, very rare for a large number of people to be involved in this, but the change still happens. So really, you want to appeal to the people who do agree with it but are too scared. And I think get up out of bed, get into the streets, let's do this, it's going to be fun, let's make it happen.